Can incarcerated persons graduate from tertiary institutions? Eight. How is it fair that they can participate in higher education programs during incarceration? Well, today we're going to speak more about that with Shanell Bailey, who will be talking about the prison to college pipeline. Join us. And welcome to the Safer Tomorrow podcast, your resource for strategies from around the world to reduce crime and violence and to create a more peaceful society. I'm Dr. Joe, and I'm a criminal justice researcher and a community social work educator, and I am very passionate about finding strategies and resources to reduce crime and violence in my country, Jamaica, and hopefully around the world. Today we have Miss Shanell Bailey, and I'm really excited to have her. We've had some conversations before, and I think she is going to share an initiative that would be really interesting and that is very important in terms of facilitating reintegration for formerly incarcerated citizens. But before we go into that, I'm just going to ask Miss Bailey just to tell us a little bit about herself, who she is, what work she has been doing, and then we'll find out a little bit more as well as about what sparked her interest in this field?
Hi, Dr. Joe. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Congratulations again on your podcast. This is really
Thank
great. This is
you.
awesome.
Thank
So I'm Shanell. So I have a bachelor's degree in forensic psychology from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. So I'm like a kind of a baby in this world and this research. I'm entering into becoming a specialist in prison reentry and reintegration. So I'm also the project manager for the UE Mona Prison Project currently. And over the years, since graduating and getting my degree, I've been working in the reentry and reintegration realm. That's solely what I've been doing since college. And after college, it's been several years now since then.
Nice. Okay. So, what got you interested in this field? You're a young lady, you know,
Right.
and I mean, I'm also young, but just what got you into this field of study?
So I went to university in New York. So I was born in Jamaica, well, not raised in Jamaica, born in Jamaica, raised in New York City. I went to John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York. And again, my major was forensic psychology. So throughout college, I did a lot of social justice work, criminal justice work, research, and getting into vulnerable and marginalized communities. So my senior year at John Jay, I took a lot of classes. And one of them was a study abroad to South Africa. So the semester before, I was able to meet the commissioner of probation and parole in New York City. He came to one of our classes, and that kind of sparked the interest around corrections, prison, reentry, reintegration, all that stuff. So I found a study abroad that was going to South Africa with Dr. Baz Dreisinger. And Dr. Dreisinger is the founder of the Prison to College Pipeline program in New York at my alma mater in John Jay. So through that study abroad, meeting with Dr. Dreisinger, being able to go to the prisons in South Africa, sitting down with incarcerated men and women there, talking with them, that kind of sparked my interest. So after that, I came to Jamaica the same year to talk more about this initiative. And then I just started working in the field. That's really snowballed into all of this.
Oh, that's amazing. You really got immersed
Yeah.
into the field very early. So even though you're saying, "Oh, I'm new to this," you actually have a good amount of experience. So, what exactly is the prison to college pipeline?
So the prison to college pipeline program is it plays off of the school to prison pipeline, which is kind of about the over policing in urban communities in schools that lead to eventually the incarceration of students and so on and so forth, which is like a pipeline that funnels kids from schools into the prison. The prison to college pipeline is almost like a correction of that in some way. And what it is incarcerated people at Otisville Correctional Facility get access to university courses and gain credits And then once they're released, they're able to continue their education at one of the universities under the City University of New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do persons become involved in the program generally?
So generally what happens is, so the program is housed at Otisville Correctional Facility. And so there are three kind of qualifications that students would have to meet. So they would have to have a high school diploma and or a GED, or a GED, which is now the high school equivalency. So if you didn't finish high school, you take an exam and you have the high school equivalency. You would have to be within 5 years of release, and you also have to pass the math and English portion of the CUNY assessment. There's an assessment that you have to do in order to get into the university. They also do that. And if they have all of those things, they then do the admission, go through the admissions process. They do interviews and they answer a couple of questions and go through that process. That's how they get involved. So once they meet those criterias and they go through that regular CUNY process, they can then be admitted after a rigorous, admissions cycle to get into the program.
Okay, okay. So it's not an easy slide then, and it's
No,
not
no,
anybody that can be part of this program. They have to
no.
really meet some particular requirements. So, in terms of the profile of persons who tend to join, apart from what you described,
Mhm.
are there persons who have committed particular types of crimes, so maybe less violent or less serious crimes, or more violent, more serious
Everyone.
crimes?
Any
Everyone.
and everyone can apply. If you're incarcerated at Otisville Correctional Facility, you have a high school diploma or a GED or high school equivalency, and you meet all the other qualifications, you can apply to the program. No matter what the criminal background is, what you were convicted of, you can still apply to the program.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So, what are some of the degree programs that persons have been able to complete as a result of this particular program?
Oh, several things. So whatever is offered under the CUNY school that they are released into. So there are several different kind of college and prison programs in the US and abroad. The prison to college pipeline is a particular program where it's like an inside out program. So students don't complete their degree inside while they're incarcerated through the prison to college pipeline. The purpose of the program is so that students will leave the facility, and it works more like reintegration through education. So they use the program in order to funnel the students into university. So then they have access to resources, community, psychosocial support, and all those things. So how it generally works is once they start, they do a lot of the general education requirements while they're inside the facility. So they'll do math, English, other liberal arts, stuff like that, other liberal arts classes. And that builds into credits. And then those credits they can use once they're released. They get admissions into any one of the CUNY schools. So whether that's John Jay College, York College, whatever school falls under CUNY, and then they can pursue whatever degree is offered at that university.
Okay, so it's somewhat of a transitional program then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very great. Very good. And so in terms of the evaluation, is there an evaluation that occurs during incarceration, and then post incarceration?
What do you mean in reference to reentry?
No, in terms of the program itself.
I'm not
So,
sure exactly.
so in terms of their assessments,
Hmm.
so they do assessments during incarceration.
Correct. So
Right.
there is like whatever assessment to get into the university. So you mean like in order to determine whether or not this program is successful and if it's effective in the way that we want it to be effective. Right. Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, in terms of the types of employment jobs persons have been
Hmm.
able to acquire through this program or after this program, what are some of those?
So varying different type of degrees, not degrees, jobs and job prospects. So the point of the program essentially is so that people are able to reintegrate and get back to the normal of life, that you're an average citizen. So whatever the average citizen can do, you can also do as well. So you'll see varying different options. People might go into construction. Someone might go into getting their master's and graduate degrees and becoming professors, all sorts of anything in between that as well. So we have one student. So I mentioned earlier, I came to Jamaica in 2018 to kind of advocate for the prison to college pipeline here. We'll talk about that later. And I came with the first graduate of the program, who's Devon Simmons. Devon spent several years while he was incarcerated. And Devon is now the program director at Columbia Law School. So he's doing a paralegal pathways program that he helped develop. And he graduated summa cum laude at John Jay and all of those wonderful things. So he's an exceptional person. And so there's varying degrees of different types of jobs that students have been able to acquire after the program.
Okay, so last week on the program, I mean
Mhm.
locally, what we heard about are some of the challenges that persons have in obtaining employment.
Yes.
For I mean, for those abroad in the CUNY programs, have they encountered any of those challenges after completing their degrees?
Of course, of course. So the program started before the ban the box movement in the U.S. So there was a situation where, once you're applying for jobs, you would have to click off whether or not you've been arrested or convicted of criminal convictions. And so all the stigma that comes with being incarcerated and all those things, of course, students are affected by that, right? And so some of the solutions around that we see is that a lot of formerly incarcerated people have started their own businesses. They go into entrepreneurship. They have started a lot of the reentry, reintegration programs in New York, and then they thus hire formerly incarcerated people. So New York and the US is kind of a bit more advanced, and we're moving towards more acceptance and integration of incarcerated people. So of course students have had difficulties in the beginning around employment and their histories, and I think throughout the years it has gotten a lot better.
Okay. So apart from the program itself, kind
Mhm.
of helping persons to acquire education, how do you believe this program supports persons leaving a life of crime as well as actually reintegrating into society? Could you unpack that picture for us a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So I think what's really good about the prison to college pipeline program, um, separate from other college and prison programs, is the emphasis on reintegration and reentry support for students. So we understand that academics and education is important, and the work that we do inside the prison is extremely important. But sometimes that work that we do in the prison doesn't always translate to once they're released and in the community. So the most beneficial thing about this program and a lot of other programs throughout the years that have developed is the sense of community. So what I've seen that programs that are successful and have high success rates with students that are able to gain employment, and not just like the average employment, become professors and do all sorts of things, is the community that's built in the programs and the access to resources and the professors and all of those things, which can sometimes only be achieved through in-person classes at the facilities, resources, and also planning for reentry, helping them to think about what life is going to be like once they're released. Acknowledging that, even though they're in the prisons and, the professors come inside and they are people and regular, normal, average people, that conviction and that stigma that comes from it, not everyone might perceive them that way. And so this program, the Prison College Pipeline Program, does a really good job, I think, of working on the inside and the outside approaches. And the building of that community and those support systems is what helps them to be successful when they're out.
Mm. So, I mean, as I speak to a number of persons on this
Mhm.
podcast, definitely one of the things I'm hearing come out is the importance of community and social ties, and
Yes.
just how that really undergirds all the processes of
Hmm.
reintegration. So, from what you're saying, even though education is a clear opportunity and a clear pathway out of crime, and it also
Hmm.
helps them to re-enter into society, it's not just the education, but it is that kind of community support and the support
Definitely.
systems that you are saying, that will
Definitely.
help to facilitate a sustained approach, a sustained experience, a
Hmm.
sustained continuation, therefore,
Exactly.
in leaving this life of crime and becoming a part of society. And it's interesting. Do they retain some of the relationships? So so I assume some of the some of the interactions and
Hmm.
the relationships that they would have built within the facility with the professors, well, they would continue it once they continue it at CUNY, right? But are
Definitely.
there other relationships through this program that they continue post the facility after they've left?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I can speak because I have the most experience with prison to college pipeline, specifically because I went to John Jay and my connection with Dr. Dreisinger. And so, what I will say is that Dr. Dreisinger herself maintains a lot of communication with the students, right? So, that is one thing I think that is really, really important. Being someone who founded the program, she's very hands-on. They're like her family. They are exactly family. So Devon Simmons, I don't know, maybe I don't. Devon Simmons that I mentioned, Devon is family, right? So Devon is family, his kids is family, his wife is family. And so they maintain all of those relationships. We'll have barbecues, we'll go out on trips together, weddings happen, people go to weddings and all of those things. So the sense of community and support is really important in having success stories over time.
Mhm.
And like you said, sustainability in order to sustain that long
Yeah.
term.
Yes. Are there any, apart from the one you've mentioned so far, are there any success stories of note that, you would like to share with us?
Outside of Devon, oh my gosh. So I got the questions a little bit late. There's two students, right, that their names are escaping me
That's
currently.
fine.
Yeah, two
That's
students
fine.
that their names are escaping me currently. They're doing well as well. There are several students, but I just can't right now on the top of my
That's
head.
fine.
Devon
That's
is I
fine.
have the best experience with Devon um, off the top of my head. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
no problem. No problem. Well, I really am asking in terms of their experience, not necessarily
Mhm.
their names, in terms of what their experience was like going through this program and completing it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's very similar to that of Devon. So
Okay.
students who have gone on to maybe be program directors in other like the PD Green project or working on, the documentary Incarceration Nations with Dr. Dreisinger. It's very similar. It's not like Devon is an outlier. Everyone has similar stories with interactions with Dr. Dreisinger, other professors, even some of the mentors and learning exchange students. So a part of the prison to college pipeline program is that traditional CUNY students go into the prison once a month to learn alongside the guys. So once they're outside in the prison, they're able to connect with them on a regular basis and build those connections. So it's not just Devon, but every other student as well.
Okay, so it sounds like it has a high success rate. And I'm hearing some of the reasons why, again, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
community and building the bridges during incarceration, so that once they have left, those relationships are
Yes.
maintained, and they can continue and facilitate other opportunities for them post prison.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of some of those who may not have been as successful, do you know why? What may have led to some of the challenges they would have experienced failing to complete the program?
Right. So life
Mm,
sometimes. So it sounds like very broad and vague, but sometimes they're not best prepared for the realities of like life and struggles that might come with that. So education might be the last thing on the list compared to housing, employment. People might come out and have families and children that they have to support. And so they
mhm,
might get lost in all of the struggles of the day to day activities of life. So what I have seen is that people who have maintained connections and communication with the program and other people who participated in the program generally do very well once they're released, right? They're able to maintain those community connections and ties, and they'll finish their degree. Some people will come out, and it's not a lot. A few people will come out, and maybe they have had really strenuous connections with gang activity or crime before, and it's kind of hard to um, completely break away once you're released, right? Going back into communities that are still riddled with violence and all of those things. So like the day-to-day of life kind of becomes a stressor, and education is not at the forefront of some people, where it's survival and other things with
Mhm.
life.
Mhm. And I think what's important for us to remember as you say that is that that's the same thing for us. For those who have
Yeah.
never been in a facility, sometimes the reason why we don't complete our degrees or meet some
Hmm.
of our goals is really because life happens.
Yes.
We also have challenges in trying to manage the stressors and manage the balance, the different worlds
Exactly.
that we're in as well. And so it's important for us, I think, just to remember that it's no different. you know it doesn't make them extraordinary in these situations.
Definitely.
So moving now to the more local space,
Yes.
I would love to hear about the Jamaican experience, a pilot project for the prison to college pipeline program here.
Yes, so we just actually wrapped up the UE Mona Prison Project, which is a prison to college pipeline initiative here in Jamaica. We launched it in February of this year, and then we wrapped up at the end of July, right? And we had our graduation ceremony. It was phenomenal. Hopefully, soon you'll be seeing the valedictorian speech. He did an amazing job. So, the prison to college pipeline program here in Jamaica, which is now dubbed as the UE Mona Prison Project, um, started several years ago while I was an undergraduate at John Jay College, and I know you know this very well. So before I even knew anything about it, for years it was trying under development and working on by Dr. Sonia Stanley Naya at the Institute of Caribbean Studies and Dr. Dreisinger. So they came together and was really trying to push this initiative here, and got to a decent place, but like many things, funding is an issue,
Yes.
right? So over the years, I came here in 2021 as a Fulbright scholar doing Fulbright research. And towards the end of my Fulbright, we got an opportunity to apply for a capacity building grant through BARD Prison Initiative, which is one of the largest prison programs in the US. And we were able to start a pilot. So the initial idea for the UE Mona Prison Project was to be something very similar to that of the Prison to College Pipeline in New York, where students would be able to gain credits inside one of the institutions, and then they will be funneled like a pipeline into the University of the West Indies, Mona campus here. Through varying stages of development and all those stuff, we got our program off the ground, and we were able to offer 10 students, yay, we were able to offer 10 students a certificate in entertainment business through the department, the Institute of Caribbean Studies at UE Mona. And it went extremely well. I think I wasn't really shocked by the the performance of the students. It's something that they wanted and they've been wanting for years, and so they were committed to getting the work done, and they were definitely appreciative of the opportunity. And I know that the professors who went inside the institution really valued the experience as well.
What would you say is one of the highlights of the program while you were implementing it?
Oh man, oh man. I think getting it started was one of the highlights. The first class we had was like, oh my gosh, it's happening. That was definitely a highlight. I think I'm still off of the graduation, and there's one student that at the beginning he was dubbed the spokesperson for the program. He would come in highly intelligent, speaks really well, and so even when he didn't want to speak, everyone's pushing him out front to speak, and he performed the best in the class. And he had a speech, a valedictorian speech that was really profound, and it moved a lot of people in the room. So that was really a highlight to see that moment,
Wow.
have them have that moment. Yeah.
Well, let me say congratulations.
Thank you.
Right? I know you worked very hard on this, and sometimes this work kind of it goes under the radar. Not everybody knows, but I
Yeah.
want to say congratulations for your hard work. And this is very important work. And of course, you are a pioneer. As you are
Thank you.
pioneering this project here in Jamaica. So, I mean, what were some of the challenges though you encountered? I figure, I mean, this is a pilot project, so in every project
Hmm.
there must be some kind of challenge. And so, for those who may be listening and figuring out how they may want to implement it sometime in the future, what are some of the challenges you encountered, and how were you able to, if at all, to kind of circumvent them and overcome them?
All right. So there were a bit of challenges, right? So Jamaica is not the U.S., right? Um,
What does
and
that mean?
and the U.S. is not Jamaica in all different ways, which also means that certain opportunities around education and free education is not available in Jamaica, like it is in the U.S. So with the prison to college pipeline in New York, that is able to happen and able to happen easily because we have financial aid for students, right? If you
Mhm.
make under a certain amount, most of the time, all of your tuition is covered by the government, right? You can pay into it, and while you're incarcerated, you're not making any income. So most of those students' tuitions are fully covered under our financial aid programs and loans and all of those things, but also just financial aid that people don't have to pay back. That's not the reality here in Jamaica. And so that was one of the biggest hurdles is that when you're offering a university and prison program, you have to think about the finances and how we're able to fund all of these students while they're incarcerated at, a university like the University of the West Indies, which is expensive, or, it's the Ivy League of the Caribbean, right? And so that was a challenge. So with the grant, we were able to kind of figure out, okay, what can we offer to make sure that the students get the best experience and also are not cheated out of an education and a quality education from the University of the West Indies? And I think we were able to do that successfully with the certificate program and for them to get the best value for our pilot. Another challenge that we had was finding students to participate in the program.
Mm.
So when the Prison to College Pipeline Initiative was first introduced, there was no other university and prison program in the Caribbean, well, at least in this region, doing something like that, right? Since then, two initiatives have started. One here in Jamaica. So there's an MOU with UCC, Senate for Jamaica, and Department of Correctional Services. And they started off in, I believe, 2021, 2022, offering associate's degrees in business administration to students, like around 5 students, that they've expanded to offering bachelor's degrees, all online programs. There's also a program in Cayman Islands that's offering certificates, online degrees through the UWI Open Campus and Her Majesty's Cayman Islands Prison Service. What that means for Jamaica, though, is that Jamaica's not really different in this sense, where you'll see in incarcerated settings, there are a higher number of people who don't necessarily have the qualifications for university. And so that is a difficulty, especially with the number of other programs, which is not really a bad thing. It's a good thing. But we don't want to have the same students being able to participate
Mm.
in one program. We want to make sure that everyone is able to have access to quality higher education. So that was a difficulty, but we were able to work around that through mature entry requirements and also allowing other students to help with the program. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you were talking about in terms of having more players in the space and it not
Hmm.
being a competition, but actually complementary and
Yes.
important is just knowing that not everybody has the same goals, and
Right.
each university, each program is not going to be able to offer the same thing. And
Right.
so when you have diverse options, it gives the
Hmm.
participants options that would be more in line with their goals and therefore more
Definitely.
likely to be utilized post prison after leaving the facilities. So
Yes.
I think it actually is a good thing, but I understand the challenge that you would face. For participants for your program. But I'm happy that you were able to find a way around it. And truly,
Yes.
I think that as we continue and as you continue, you will be able to see more and more persons who will be able to be engaged in the program. So I'm going to ask you a question now that I think is probably on some person's minds.
Okay.
Now, you commit a crime and you are incarcerated. Why
Hmm.
should you have access to higher education? There are persons out here in
Yeah.
society outside that can't afford it. They're unable to go. But now, this person or these persons who have committed a crime are now not just being able to go, but are
Hmm.
being paid. Their
Right.
tuitions are being covered.
Right.
How is that fair?
Right. That is the question. I think that that is the biggest question that we've had around this project since its inception. And I think that everyone should have access to education and higher education. I think that we have to work and the government has to work to try to figure out how we can have everyone have a quality education and an affordable education here in Jamaica and all over the world. I think that it's important not to exclude anyone from that. So it's not necessarily about them having a privilege or an opportunity, but them not being excluded from something that is a human right. And so if we have this opportunity to provide them with something that they should be able to do because they're people, and just because you've done something wrong doesn't mean that you should be thrown away and not given opportunities for the rest of your life. And I think it's more about that, making sure that no one is excluded from having an education and a quality education. And if we can work to also include the rest of the community in some of the initiative, then we'll work to do that as well.
I like that answer because what it speaks about is the expansion, you know. So
Yes.
it means that okay, it doesn't mean that it means that the persons who are unable to within society should also be afforded
Yes.
higher education, and it's not just that they shouldn't be. So I really appreciate that answer. And I mean, the truth is, if we are also seeking to, I mean, looking beyond the well-being of the clients and the
Hmm.
participants themselves, if we are looking to, to stem the state of violence and crime that we have in the nation, people need to have opportunities,
Yes.
and people need to be able to have opportunities that will provide for their needs.
Hmm.
And so higher education does provide that
It
platform
does help that.
for them, right, to get better jobs. So throughout this process for you, from you were introduced right up
Hmm.
until this pilot project that you were able to implement, has there anything that has been truly eye-opening for you that you didn't really think about before, that you were surprised by?
um I don't want to say I wasn't surprised by much. I think what I will say is that the general community is more open to this than we think they are, right? So at the inception of it, I think hearing the few who have an issue with providing higher education to people who are incarcerated kind of could have um, what is the word I'm looking for? Uh, Anyways, could have clouded some judgment around the program. But when you talk to everyday people, take Uber a lot. I don't drive, so I'll talk to Uber drivers. I'll talk to everybody, and then once they hear prison, they're like, "You're young. Why are you going into prisons?" And most people in the community are for the program. They understand the importance of education, understand the importance of everyone being provided an opportunity, and what an education, a university and prison program would do for crime, violence, and safety in Jamaica, right? Providing people with opportunity and providing people with another way, another route, something that they can work towards once they're released, keeping them busy, not just busy, but
Yeah.
helping people to pursue their dreams and passions and not always having to fight for survival is important. And I think that the general community understands that, and it was nice to see that. Once you get down to the human level and you talk to the community, you're like, no, people understand. More people understand than don't. And so that was
Mhm.
really nice.
Okay, and I like that too, because what's interesting for me is that, as we work in this area
Hmm.
and we are trying to connect persons to the communities, sometimes the community itself doesn't know how to help and how
Yeah.
to support. Do you have any suggestions about, through your program or just through the wider work that you have done
Hmm.
with incarcerated persons? Do you have any suggestions about how they can help support, facilitate reintegration and just a sense of belonging to the wider community?
I have three like very simple things that we all can do to kind of help to embrace people who have maybe struggled in the past or who are maybe ostracized based off of certain decisions they might have made in the past. And that's one is using human centered language. So making sure that we're not othering people and saying that prisoner, right, that inmate, that M word. It's incarcerated person, formerly incarcerated person, not deportee, deported migrant, humanize them, and it
Mhm.
means a lot to them, and we'll see how those little things can affect how we interact with each other.
Mhm.
That's one. Two, I would say volunteer, some volunteer work and experience. So stand up for Jamaica. I'm sure if you have certain skills and requirements or anything that you need, you can always volunteer with Stand Up for Jamaica. We're hoping in the next year that we're able to take on volunteers. So if you can reach out to me to volunteer with our program as well. We always need more human capacity. And lastly, I will say, if you are a business owner, if you are a shopkeeper, um, be open to hiring someone with a criminal conviction, right? So if they're qualified for the position, you know that they haven't had any negative interactions, antisocial behavior prior before, be open to hiring this person in your facility. We have to also lead by example. And we can't just say that people need employment and second chances and then not be willing to do it ourselves. So those are three ways that we can simply help out.
Thank you very much. And for those persons, maybe universities,
Mhm.
staff members that are listening and may want to implement a program like this through their university, are there any tips in terms of the process that they may need to consider when seeking to implement this program or plan for it?
I think if you are willing to financially support the program, that will be great, like waiving tuition fees and things of that sort for students. That would be helpful. I think what's important to think about is um, the needs of the students, right? One of my favorite quotes is, anything done for me without me is done against me. And so we have to think about the people who we are providing services to and what they might need. So not just, trying to provide them with things that we think are best for them, but going into the facilities or the people we're trying to directly support and asking them what they need from us, and then planning your curriculum around some of those things that might best help them once they're released. And also to center reentry and reintegration planning in your educational programs. We can do a lot of education, but the reality is there is stigma around people who are formerly incarcerated and incarcerated, and we have to think largely about, the impact of the program on them once they're in the community.
Thank you so much, Chanel. I mean, this is just such an important conversation, and I hope that the viewers, the listeners, would be able to take some of this information and use
Mhm.
it in their own settings. For those persons who may want to contact you to find out more about the prison to college pipeline, how can they find you?
Oh, you can email me. So the best thing to do is email me. All things UE Mona Prison Project or Prison to College Pipeline Jamaica. It's my first and last name, so Shanell.Bailey@fulbrightmail.org. So maybe I should spell that out. So SHANELL dot, period, BAILEY at Fulbright, FULBRIGHT You can email me there. I'll always respond. You can also reach out to the Institute of Caribbean Studies at UE Mona. I don't have their information on hand.
We can put it in.
Talk to Dr. Dave Goss. He's a director of the program, or Miss Georgia McGlashan. She's a research assistant there who's been working on the project from the beginning to end, and they'll be able to provide you with more information as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Chanel. It was great having you on the show, and thank you so much, listeners, for joining with us today to hear more about the prison to college pipeline. Truly, we hope that this is your place for finding resources from around the world to reduce crime and violence and create more peaceful societies. I'm Dr. Joe. Please remember to follow us on Instagram at Safer Tomorrow Pod and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Safer Tomorrow podcast. We love having you with us and we'll want to hear more from you. So please share, comment, like, subscribe. Have a wonderful day.